So we will basically on this on the recording function. So just so you know, it'll basically have both you and I. I can still see you. Hopefully, you can still see me. Um,
Yes.
and also, it just has what we're sort of talking through as we go through the two documents. So thanks for allowing me to do that, and thanks for the opportunity to have a look at your business and sort of give it some thinking around what we would sort of um, look at from a social media marketing and management perspective. Um,
My pleasure.
yeah. So normally, I mean, we have spoken to before. So normally, you clearly, when we spoke, you actually interviewed me last time. So I got a bit of a sense, and we're sort of doing this on the basis that I'm going to look at it. We're going to do a bit of a quid pro quo. You're going to talk to me a bit about it, your strategy, and I'm just talking to you, and I'm sharing how our strategy works for the types of clients that we both share similar clients. So I guess that's one of the reasons why we're talking to one another, correct?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So just going through this this audit in the first place, and this is just a desktop sort of research thing from an online and social perspective. So clearly the first thing that we do is we just simply put in this rethink business coaching to see what comes up to you. And I would say that particularly for service base, it's rare. Well, not rare, but let's say in our experience, it's probably 30%, no more, that actually have set up a Google My Business profile in the first instance, right? And clearly, that's a free thing that we can do. Google, we consider it a social media, albeit that it's primarily a search media, but we consider it a social media now because we can actually post through Google and do Google updates, right? But the other main thing that it's great for is that if you use this, we'll talk about, we'll have a look at the website in a second, but if you use this, you can share your reviews site. So by sharing this map here, right? So that's the icon link that often we tell people to put back on their website. So if they've had a good experience, then they know where to go to where they can leave a review. Well, clearly, if they've had any experience where they can go to give any feedback realistically. And we can see you've got one review there sitting there at the moment. It's
Oh,
also, yeah,
can I ask you a question? Because
sure.
one of my clients actually went ahead and left me a review, but it's never shown up. He then went in and updated the review, but nothing happened. Do you know why?
I've heard that they can for whatever reason. In actual fact, a guy in our network, Yoss William, did a little blog about it recently. The fact that if people are leaving reviews, and for whatever reason, it can take weeks before they actually appear. I've had it happen for me as well. So one thing you can do is you can try contacting Google support. They're not too bad around that, just to see if there's any reason why that hasn't come through.
Okay, yeah,
But there
because
is a delay for whatever reason. I can't remember what Yoss was saying in his blog, but it is something that's not unusual.
do you know I can if there's any way I can find the blog post about yours, with uh
Uh,
that yours did?
yeah, he did it on LinkedIn. I'll put it in the
LinkedIn.
chat here for you. I put his name. I'll actually connect you later if you like.
Oh,
Um,
yes, please.
that'd probably be the best bit. So here in the chat, his name is Yoss William. He's with Adrian, who's also at Diffy Social, and his business. Sorry, at another BNI chapter, BNI Yarra.
Mhm.
And Yoss's business is called. Um, I've gone a mind blank.
It's okay. How do
I
you
will
spell it?
remember that. I'll remember it. It's actually on our website. We have him as one of our partners that we do talk to. But anyway, I'll put that in the chat, and then we've got that name. And as I said, I'll connect you on LinkedIn.
Thank you.
Um, but I certainly, yeah, what we do. There is actually a little link. In fact, trying to think who I've sent that to recently in terms of speaking to Google support. So again, I'll send you that link how to contact Google perhaps after this as well. So I'll do this as a reminder to self. Google support link, and they are quite. They're generally quite reactive, which is good. To it's often can be Facebook's a little bit more difficult to contact and get unless you're actually advertising. So with Facebook, we typically go through Facebook Ads Manager and get support there. Um, but yeah, Google, their support's pretty reasonable. Um, so anyway, your website and your map clearly is what you want to come up first. There's then the interesting thing is the next thing is I don't know. I don't. Is this not you, right? This other
That's
side
not
thing.
me.
Yeah.
That's not me. Rethink Coaching, I think they are an American based business.
Yeah, that's
Unfortunately, I
right.
only
And what I
yeah.
did do, even in the audit, so then you clearly LinkedIn comes up because
Mhm,
you've put that on your profile.
mhm.
Um, and I did think this was you, but
Yes.
you're right. It is a
Yeah.
different business, so that's something I guess just to be mindful of. And so at the moment, what's actually coming up for you? The only real social that's appearing for you outside of your uh, sorry, the only social that's appearing for you is LinkedIn, and it's really appearing as you. So I mean, but having just let people know. So at the moment, it's not. It's relatively new, right, Tia? The
Yes.
name you've only just recently, what, past few months?
Yes, I only just, yes,
Yeah,
started using LinkedIn a few months ago. Back to
and
actually a couple of, maybe 1 month ago.
using that name though in terms of as a business brand, is that right? But the website, and how long have you been doing the rethink?
We think it's, only been up for maybe 10 months now.
Okay. So
Yeah.
again, it's there's what it suggests is there's probably a lot of opportunity around social to actually get, because social, whilst they're not directly interrelated, they do assist one another. Search helps, social helps search, and by putting your name in, often with many businesses, particularly ones that don't even have a website, right? Facebook's the only thing that comes up, right? Because that's often the site they'll set up first.
Yep.
So it is interesting that your business, now I'm only looking at page one here, but your business Facebook profile doesn't come up.
No,
So yeah.
it's up. You see that
Oh, which one
Facebook
is it?
page.
Sorry.
Go If you go down, keep going. To see that Facebook
Oh,
page?
this one here.
Yes.
As a
Yeah.
business owner, aren't
Yeah.
I? So if isn't
That's
this
one of
interesting?
the
Yeah.
posts, I think.
Is it this one here, isn't it? Yeah. It's
That's
interesting that it's picked up on a particular post. Yeah, there
yeah.
you go. So that's often the case. I mean, sometimes it can be a random tweet and things like that too. That's what we sort of say around social media. It's interesting how and what search sort of often brings up. Um,
Mhm,
I'll talk a little bit more around. So those two things, again, at the moment, the way you are sort of using it it's almost like you've got the brand Rethink Business Coaching, but Tia Shen is quite overlapped over that. Um, I think probably certainly the way that our approach is normally business brand first, so that it makes you look bigger, right? So and you want people to start to resonate with our Rethink Business Coaching. I know them, right? Um, so just in terms of the website, and I've just taken a screenshot here of a website, and we'll talk about just a basic layout, but one of the things that sort of you may have heard this before, but we've been taught to read websites sort of top left, down, and up, right? So effectively, what you've done here is good. Rethink business coaching. There's an argument. So I'm going to say a positioning statement. Like Nike has just do it. Rethink business coaching kind of is almost a statement in itself, right? It's a different way of doing business coaching. So I don't mind that. I think and certainly it's where it should be. Um, you immediately go into a sort of promotional billboard,
mhm.
right? So, and so your call to action is pretty much straight away in there, right? In fact, there's almost two calls to action. You've clearly got a clickable, get your free ebook, free book, and then but you're telling me you can save me a lot of money or make me a lot of money, sorry. Um,
Yeah.
and then these are all pretty clickable, right? So they're pretty clear in terms of, so for somebody like me that wants to content communicate across the social channels, it kind of tells me, well, I could communicate about the one-on-one coaching you do. I could communicate about the weekly group. I could communicate about the DIY. Clearly, you've got a probably what looks like the sort of stuff you'd want to advertise is around your ebook and how you're going to make people money. Um, so that's going down and then coming up. How you contact you would have also heard, we're lazy. right? So there's an argument to say, make sure that I can see how to contact you immediately on the website. If you want me to phone you, put it up there, right? If I can email you, put it up there. If I can see all your social media, and there's the 6 social media that we talk about, have all your social
Mhm.
media links up the top there. Now, often people say, "Oh, I've got them down below," and you may well as well. But again, just remember that we're lazy, right? So we often won't scroll down to see whether or not, and corporates are the worst at doing it, right? They might have their Facebook page and a little thing down below, but realistically, it's much better. It's next to your little shopping cart, having maybe you can put your. This is probably a WordPress template by the looks, is it? Do you know if it's
Yes.
WordPress? Yep. WordPress will enable you up the top. You could probably have your your phone number, all your 6 different icons, including that Google one we talked about before, all sitting up here and all opening into a new tab, because you don't want to open it over the top of your website. Does that make sense? Because realistically, as soon as they open you into Facebook, they might see your Facebook, but then they'll also see that you've got new notifications and blah blah blah, and you might lose them, and they might forget that they went to you in the first place. So it'd be good to add those icons all up there, and make it easy for people to contact you and almost proof you. And so the other thing that people could add is also a plugin that sort of shows what you're posting and how often you're posting and who follows you, right? So if I like your page, there's a plugin you can do. We often suggest Facebook or Instagram, and we do use it on our own website, that just shows that you are a social business, right? That you're actually posting regularly and you've got people that are interested in that content, right? So it helps proof that your content is happening and is of interest, right? Um, I the and again I think I'm just looking at a bit of language. Probably website language, but and copywriting isn't necessarily what I talk to people about. But when we repurpose any website into the social media feeds, we always probably try and use two you and yours versus one we and ours. We try not to use I. I see you can talk in terms of we when you're talking about Rethink Business Coaching. Now, I know Rethink Business Coaching may only be you at the moment, but you can talk in terms of we. We do this, right? Um, by doing I does make you sound smaller, right? You could, again, it's just something that it's okay, but it actually makes it also more difficult for somebody to repurpose your content to different social media. Because when you're putting it across to Rethink's social media channels and you're using the term I, if people are seeing that, they go, well, who's I? So we almost then, if people do that, we'll often say Tia. We'll put it in bracket, I Tia, you know. So it might well be better to use the word we when you're talking about the business. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I'm just thinking with regards to how I promote my book. How do
Mm.
I use we there?
Yeah, well, well, in terms of that, is that, in fact, it's funny you say that. We just worked with a book publisher, and actually, she wrote a book around the pandemic. She's a child psychiatrist, right? But then she has the book publishing house. Well, then we talk about it in terms of by author and Rethink Business Coaching's founder, Tia Shen. You talk about yourself in third person.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, that's a way that you can do that, right? So, or you just say Rethink Business Coaching's Tia Shen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, so that's the website. As I said, they're just sort of basic improvements that can be made around social proofing, if you like, as much as anything else. Um,
Yes.
In terms of your LinkedIn profile, firstly, I'm sure you know there's some updates, around here, because at the moment, it's interesting. It's a bit confusing, in fact. So, firstly, we don't ever use stuff that looks okay on business cards and on brochures in social media. What you'd be better off using in this image behind you. It's good that you've actually put an image behind you, which a lot of people don't do. They have that sort of default blue, but um, effectively, there's a couple of issues once we do this, right? Firstly, it doesn't look that great, right, by having that there. Secondly, it's a what we it's an opportunity for you. What looks better is real imagery, right? So it could be you with your back to with a somebody that looks like your client. So it's better off putting that the whole what's in it for me. I want to see who you work with, right? So you're better off having a picture that's similar to the picture that you might use on your websites as well. I saw there was a couple of secondary images, that you were using. Maybe one of those images um, behind you here, right? So I use something that places me a view out to Melbourne's west. Other people I've worked with, will use, you mentioned a book cover, one of the ladies sort of uses a picture from the book. So the reality is it's who you think about who you're trying to connect with and talk to here. This is for you, right? So this is, again, it's just to bring you out of the page as much as anything else. And then the other thing is you might be a property investment and renovation consultant at Sweet Uplift. Then you've got an opportunity, and LinkedIn's actually pretty generous with how much stuff they'll let you put in here. Most people actually will just use property consultant, right? You've got the opportunity to say, yes, you might be a property investment and renovations consultant at Sweet Uplift Property Consulting, and you're also the founder and principal coach at Rethink Business Coaching, right? So you can put all that in there, and clearly, if you haven't done already, you want to make sure that that's sitting here. Um, the reason that Rethink doesn't come up in as LinkedIn and only you do is because the company page hasn't been set up for Rethink, right? So that's the thing, is that there's Tia and then there's the company business. And that's very similar then to Facebook, right? You set up the company page on LinkedIn. That's what we generally are doing with people, right? The advantage, which is kind of funny because actual fact that is there. So when I click on that, you have done that. So sorry. So I take that back. What you haven't done is linked yourself to it, right? Because if you'd linked yourself to it, that LIGO should come out, right? So you've done a little bit on it. Um, yeah, just make sure you're connected to it. Um, and what I could tell you is that nowadays on LinkedIn, if you're not posting there, um, LinkedIn organic algorithm, if you get people to follow that company page, is far more generous than Facebook. So Facebook will only let 5 to 10% of your followers, given what we do, see your posts. Whereas LinkedIn, it's much more. You'll get a lot more. Our impressions, as I said, on LinkedIn now, we've got a similar following on both, and it's much higher organically on LinkedIn. From an advertising perspective, advertising on LinkedIn for small business, it's hard to make it affordable, to be fair. Um, Very good for advertising jobs, clearly. Um, Here again, without sort of being repetitious, it's not about you, right? It's about who. I mean, so if I read this, I can tell that you're actually, I like the language isn't bad. You're a business coach, but I would actually have a picture of the people that you're going to coach, not a picture of, and that's a very common thing that I see with business coaching strategist type people, right? They forget that it's actually for the person. It's all about them, right? Same with me, right? So no point in me talking about Steve Hubbard and how great I am at social media marketing. No one cares, right? They just want to know how great you're going to make their business, right? So ultimately, that starts with imagery. Make sure that that imagery looks like the people you work with and you want to work with. And that the same could be said around your posting. Your posting should use and explain to people why Rethink Business Coaching. What does Rethink Business Coaching offer? Who does Rethink Business Coaching work with? And that would be the sort of posting schedule we would have, right? Is that it would be about why, what, who, testimony, that sort of stuff, right? Because it's often well, you'd agree, I'm sure, it's much better if other people say you're great than it is if you say you're great. We believe others' experiences, right? Um, and so I think probably, and this wouldn't matter that if you're a business coach or otherwise, make it not about you. Make it about your target audience that you're speaking to. And I'm sure the thing probably is that you probably, when you're talking in these videos, that's probably exactly what you do. Would that be fair?
I'm trying to offer some value to them, so
Yeah,
to
that's right.
give them
So
some ideas and information.
yeah, yeah. So I reckon when you're talking, you probably do that, right? So it's just about changing probably the feel of what I'm looking at, right? So because to me, and I've got to tell you, it's just a personal thing, and I'm happy to receive feedback around it. But I do react when I see people that are always the sort of. It doesn't matter what field they're in, right? They're the new guru at whatever it is. It's a bit like, well, okay, I don't know that I need that. You know what I mean? I want to see myself in their marketing. Yeah. And I think I might have said to you last time, I think there is and I don't know if you agree with the people you're working with at the moment or hope to work with, but we often attract quite similar, right? So, firstly, we attract similar to clients that we already have. We tend to attract more of those. And I think you were sort of saying you're working with some cafe owners and that sort of thing. And so we'll often attract that, but we'll often attract people that are maybe a similar age range. Maybe, I've said to you, I typically attract greater male business owner, because we then tend to often, whatever it is, want to have a relationship with someone closer to our gender as well. Can be the case, right? Um, so anyway, it doesn't hurt to show the client rather than yourself. And as I said, it was initially I thought this was actually yours, but the interesting thing is she's made the mistake of actually going the next step. She's actually put a picture of herself in instead of the logo. At least you haven't done that, right? So, and this is again, a common mistake is people will often get this round the wrong way. They'll actually put their logo here and a picture up here. So again, having that picture up there, but it's good for you to perhaps know that you're up against this lady, right, who happens to be in the States, is because you got to make it very clear that you're here in Australia, right? So, for if nothing else, you don't want her getting sort of people speaking to her. uh, Not that they probably necessarily would, but you kind of want to make sure they know they're going to the right rethink coaching. Yeah. So, oh, yeah, Instagram. I couldn't find rethink coaching on Instagram. I don't think is that right.
Oh, it's just me. Yeah, I
I
haven't
so
had
you you've
time to
ju
do
you've done it, yes,
Instagram.
okay. So, yeah, I couldn't, so there's an opportunity to so it appears what I'm saying to you is there's an opportunity to brand and have a rethink, coaching on Instagram and integrate that with your Facebook. Um, there's opportunity to create, and again, you've probably done this as yourself, potentially on Twitter also, but it doesn't appear like there's been any mention of rethink business coaching. So again,
No, I haven't done Twitter.
yeah, so there's
No.
probably sometimes it's interesting when people may not, established businesses may not have done something, for instance, but it doesn't mean that it's not being talked about, right? So it is something that you can own. It's another brand, social media that you can brand and you can locate yourself and you can basically educate of who it is that you work with. And with any, we talk about relationship first, sale second, right? So with all of the social media, if you could be following others that are in the sort of people that live where you live, do what you're interested in doing, and probably who are in your network, then it's a good way of sort of thinking relationships first, yeah? Which is, I think, makes sense when you're doing business coaching, my personal belief. Here's that link I was saying before. That's the link that I would put on your website. So you've got your Google, put your Google icon there, and put your link for your Google location, so people know you are on Google. And then I just did a search to see what there was on YouTube, but again, when you put in rethink business, you get a raft of things. But it is a brand you could own, right? You could own rethink business coaching, and funnily enough, your YouTube channel is actually probably the best of the landing pages, because when you create a YouTube channel, not only can you load um, videos to it, and it's the second most powerful search engine, you can actually put a cover picture in there. You can put your website icon, and you can put all your other social media icons, and so then clearly it becomes, and it helps from a search perspective as well, right? Um, but if I was only going to do one landing page, I reckon I'd choose YouTube, just because of the fact that as a social media, if you know what I mean. So clearly, you got Google My Business as well. Um, uh, so any questions around that? sort of feedback on the audit side of things? No.
No, no, it's
Is it
all very good.
yeah, so I just thought this is part of that the proposal, but I just thought I don't think we touched on this when we spoke last time. Often I may have said to you that what marketers call marketing, businesses just call business, right? So that's why it's interesting when you and I talk to each other from a business coaching perspective. Um, Business coaches are more likely to call marketing marketing, but realistically, what most businesses consider marketing, we'd consider marketing communications, right? And so when I talk to clients, I'm not talking to them about their pricing strategy or their product strategy or their placement strategy, right? I'm simply generally talking to them about their social media communications, which sits up the top here in their communications house. And unless you have decent marketing and business strategy, what I do with businesses is very reliant on that. So no amount of social media marketing will make a bad business better. In fact, it'll just make it fail faster. So realistically, if you're
So
promoting
what do you
something,
do? So what
so
do you do with clients when they don't have a solid marketing foundation, strategy foundation?
well, the most obvious thing often for me around that is I do give a bit of education around how we would, from a marketing perspective, is that an often indicator for that if people are starting out, they don't have a website. Well, for us to work with people, they often need to have a website. For us to actually, and that's I think what we did communicate the other day. If they're starting out with a business and they don't have business strategy, well, I would suggest that they speak to people like yourself, a business
Okay.
coach, a business strategist, a business mentor, right? That could help them with that, right? Because otherwise,
Who
yeah.
whoever whoever that whoever runs into you before they have a strategy and they wanting to hire you to do their marketing communications,
Mm.
I guess they're the lucky ones because you can't imagine how many clients that I speak with who actually run into people who offer them services, but then without giving them advice on how to build it up from the ground up, and they waste a lot of money on
Yeah, yeah,
spending.
no, absolutely. Um, that can absolutely, and we're not too dissimilar in that, right? In terms of people won't often spend money when they're starting out, no matter what it looks like, whether it's around business coaching or marketing. It's only later they realize that had they spent that money, they probably would have saved themselves money,
Right,
going
you
through
know,
that
that got
process.
me thinking because
Yeah.
I am actually running a online focus group next month. Basically, what I'm gonna talk about is exactly what your clients might be facing at, the beginning of the journey to get the message right. Because I'm gonna talk about how to get their marketing message right for good, because I'm gonna teach the audience about a formula of basically all marketing messages.
Mm.
So it's for free, and would you do you think you want to maybe implement? Well, I not implement, but it'll benefit some of your clients that they might find it interesting, and maybe if they get something out of it, they're more likely to engage you to do their marketing afterwards, and then they might be seeing more success, and then they'll
If
come
they're
back and engage
Remember
you.
if they'd be already my client. As I said, I have a rider really to a degree, if depending on where people are. I think there's something in that. I think that's what we were talking about before around the strategy. Let's just go through that because there might be other things that you might find that there might be other little light bulb moments that you kind of have as we talk through this, right? So often then we sort of just from a marketer's hat, I just explained to them they really need to know who their customer is, who we're talking to. And this is particularly important when we're doing Facebook advertising for people.
Mhm.
Their offer needs to be clear. It doesn't necessarily need to be, that doesn't mean it's a cheap or a cheapened offer or anything along those lines, free, two for one. It just needs to be, this is all about competitive advantage. It just needs to be good as, if not better than their competitors, right? And then
Mhm.
what is their unique difference? Often, what is it that makes them better than their competition, right? Many business people, it's because they've been in business for years, right? So, to your point, sometimes people need coaching for different reasons. Sometimes they need coaching because they might have got stale. Sometimes they need coaching because they're starting out. It just you did just a, sometimes they want super growth. Who knows, right? But yeah, ultimately, most of them have some unique difference even if it's just location sometimes,
Yes.
you know?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes.
And then one of the biggest things that we talk about is that you might have heard the word content marketing. Content
Mhm.
marketing is just the words you use and the images, right? And so that's what we were saying a little bit before. Copywriting is really important is because it's not about we and our, it's about you and your. We're in a whiffum generation. What's in it for me? What am I going to get out of it? How are you going to make me money? Right? Um, Design and imagery is really important in social media. In social media, the more real you can make it, the better. Because as soon as you start using graphics, even Canva type images on posts and social media, people know you're trying to sell them. And people, as soon as they see in their news feed, and it's all about news feed. Doesn't matter whether it's LinkedIn feed, Instagram feed, Facebook feed, Twitter feed. It's all about feed. As soon as they see that in between what Mary had for breakfast, what movies she saw, what John did, you know, and in between that, all of a sudden there's a marketing message that reeks of selling. They go, I don't want to see this shit in my feed, right? So real imagery works best because we can see ourselves into real imagery. So none of this, what looks good on banners or brochures, that sort of stuff. So typically, the only thing we might do is watermark some of the images if people have had their images done professionally and that sort of stuff. And then we set up the top here. It's like you would have heard, you know, marketing communications work best when it's a like a fruit salad, you know. So clearly, if people are doing email marketing, if they're doing you know, their website's good, they've got SEO, they've got pay per click, they've done radio, who knows, right? But the reality is, the more established businesses, if you're doing other things, I've talked to you about B&I. You know, realistically, my business pretty much has grown over the years just purely of those two main things. So, business networking, i.e., networking, and social media marketing are the two fundamental things that I've used in my business. Whilst we don't primarily focus on people's LinkedIn because we're not about personal brand here, we do want people to be the best representative of their business brand. So it starts with you and your network. We're all about competitive advantage. So we want to know what your rivals are doing. So we want to make sure that you're doing it better than them. We talked about the fact that when we're targeting, particularly Facebook ads, we know that your new prospects are probably going to look like your current clients. So that's
Yes.
who we typically target. We use a repurposing strategy. So, in other words, we don't create content per se. We tell people to put all the content they want on their website so we can repurpose that to the social media. And we do that for clients either daily or every second day. And we post to their social media channels, all bar YouTube, which basically, if you've got a video, we'll load it to YouTube. But otherwise, we're doing the other five channels. And then we know that less than 50% of businesses have any social media presence. It's 50% of small businesses. So, and of them, less than 30% have ever advertised. Less than 13% have a strategy. So all of a sudden, you're talking about very few businesses that can't get competitive advantage by doing a social media strategy, right? Because most of their competitors aren't doing it, right? And those that often are often paying way over the odds. They're paying just for advertising or through digital agencies. So trades, I often see trades in some of the bigger ones that are paying way too much, and they often finish up coming back, and they've been burnt, right? And so, anyway, they're the rarity. They're a 5%er, I reckon. And anyway, like any good marketing, you need to do ROI. So we do the once-off cost around setup and planning session with our clients. There's the cost of our time to manage, which starts from $175 a month. And then there's the cost of ads campaigns, and we recommend that all our clients do spend a minimum amount on their ad campaigns. Realistically, because if you don't now, it's the difference between hundreds of people seeing your posts, if you're lucky, and tens of thousands of people seeing your posts as soon as you advertise them. Um, and even then, it's important what you advertise. So that's the strategy in an infographic. Do any questions around that?
Yes, because I don't really see any numbers. So, did you say 175
Oh,
for the
so
men?
those numbers are, yeah. So basically, they're on the website. So yeah, the setup and planning. So we got the consult, which is $407, which we're doing today. But then we typically waive 50% for people if they then proceed to the setup and planning session. The setup and planning session is a 5 hour day, so it's 3 hours plus 2 hours. I believe it's $1,017, right? And then that's for the 5 hours. And beyond that, as I said, the management starts. I think that there's three levels effectively that people are coming in at. There's the extra small, 175. You've got extra small, which is $282.50. You've got small. So extra small and small are generally where people are coming in at. And then we've actually got small to medium, which is more like your larger businesses that want to post twice a day. And that can be things like associations where they might be posting one message to the consumer and one message to the professional member, for instance. But yeah, all that pricing is on the website, so you
Oh,
can pretty much,
and all the things that's included, like, because I'm not sure
yeah,
exactly what, so you
yeah,
actually
sure. So
create
that's
the
correct. So all the stuff, if you go in here, so for instance, we were just looking at management. Um, if you go into management, you can see the difference between the management levels as well. So I was mentioning that 175, that's 4 monthly reporting, 2 posts a week, versus 282, which is every second day and every second month, versus 429, which is every day and every month reporting, versus small to meeting at the 632. And we put all of our clients on what we call a gold level publish scheduler, which is a social media scheduler now, which enables us to watermark, post video, and do other certain funky things that you can't do on most free platforms. So, yeah. So yeah,
Okay.
that's
So
that
if
pricing.
I need to provide the contents, right? Or do you
No,
actually
no, the content that we use is from your website. So there's possibly stuff you'd need to do to add layers to your website. You might need to add more imagery if you don't want us always using free type imagery. Um, and there might be more detail. But in the main, you don't doesn't need to be, particularly if you're looking at doing blogs and you're doing your interviews and a few things that you're doing. And so in actual fact, I don't know why I went there. That's what's in this proposal, right? Right. So I just went, and so you were sort of saying, so that's actually in here. So there's the cost of, like, today's session. Normally, if people commit to an audit and a consult, as I said, there's that $407 cost, but we waive that if they then proceed to the next step. So the next step is about getting the setup, doing the setup session and the planning session, and that's setting up those various sites. I'll send you this to you, by the way, so you'll have this after this session. Not just so clearly, the reason we do it, because I don't know if I've said that to you, most people when they're organizing an audit and consult have already received the brochure. I think you may have received the brochure, right? And that brochure sort of steps through what we do and the costs and that sort of stuff. So we're about protecting the brand online. We want to differentiate you from the competition. We want you to be top of mind. And ultimately, we want to increase business opportunities, right? Which I'm sure is similar language to what you'd be using to your with
absolutely,
your
yes.
with your people. So as I said, and then this comes out once the consult is now, but it's also then just goes through. Do you have any questions about what we would be doing? So and look, there is those people. I mean, we've just been in 2 years in COVID, right? So we've had I've had people where they've done in the audit and consult, and then the very next day they've had to close their doors, right? So there is times where we send though people will pay that 407 and they've just had the audit and consult, and they know that if they wish to then pick it up in the future, then realistically, because they know what we do, right? So there's nothing to stop them having a go at doing that themselves. It's just the question of how long it might take them by comparison to doing it with us, right? Um, that's why we're a little bit wary now. Back in the day, I used to, 7 or 8 years ago, I did a lot of free consults. I never used to record, and I found it was me then that was doing the follow ups, right? So we've sort of introduced this wave 50% type audit and consult to make sure that we get a genuine interest, not someone that's just trying to find out what we know, and how much we know and what we do, right? So anyway, that I'll send this to you. But effectively, the setup and planning session, 3 hours, $610.50. The 2 hour planning session, often done on the same day. We just have a break for lunch, and then and that's about sort of connecting with network and setting up Facebook Ads Manager, including saved audiences and pixels, that sort of thing. And then, as I said, we've got the various, and we don't ever sort of tell people. Often, I might suggest, but most of our clients do fit in that sort of extra small to small. Um, generally, the reason that is because on Wednesdays each week, I actually go in as them on Facebook and engage and be a bit social and share something that might be strategically relevant to their audience from somewhere else, often something that's strategically bigger. So you were trying to get to do almost ambush social media marketing. So I'll send you that, and I'm just mindful of time.
Me too.
Yeah,
Yes, I don't
yeah,
want you to be late. So,
yeah.
really, thank you so much, Steve, for whatever you like, all the things you've done for me today. I'm super impressed, and especially with not just your professionalism and also the quality of the graphic is really good. I can see, your stuff is
Sure.
really really good. So last time when I was interviewing you, you did offer the 50% off consult to my audience if they become interested in finding out more about your
Oh,
service.
definitely. That's right. So um, that's always something that we do for businesses and certainly we'd offer that the same for yourself, being mindful that that's if they then proceed to at least set up, right? So realistically, yeah. So normally, because it just so you know, it's a couple of hours involvement for me, right? So first I go looking, present it, and then we have this session with them. So yeah. How about I stop the recording here and then we
Sure.
and have a quick chat straight after.
Oh yes.